Opinion: an expert's advice on talking to the climate skeptic in your life. Climate skeptic 就是怀疑论。Climate skeptic. I've ended up in plenty of awkward尴尬的 awkward climate change conversation over the year I've spent covering the issue as a journalist. There was a farmer in Oklahoma who pulled charge from his jacket pocket. Literal clipping 是文字剪切、剪辑、简报 from agriculture publications to try to prove to me that the climate isn't warming, it is, and that humans aren't to blame, we are. A couple of years ago, a retired coal miner, who's since become a friend, walked me to the edge of a canyon in Utah to marvel at the millions of years of geological history visible in the pink and orange layers of sedimentations. The earth is so big and old and awesome and always changing, he told me. People are too small and our time too short to really alter the planet. In moments like this, I don't think there's much to say. I trust my instincts. I try to understand, to ask questions, to relate. I don't want to convince anyone of anything. I just want to be present and listen. That can be painfully difficult, though, when it comes to issues of science like COVID-19 and the climate crisis. There's only one set of scientific facts, but not all of us acknowledge them as such. That can lead to fact war exchanges, conversational versions of Reddit threads or Facebook comments that no one enjoys. Engaging with each other across these lines of difference can be exhausting, especially amid a pandemic and on the heels of a way beyond tense election season. No wonder that, even though it affects everyone's lives, only 35% of Americans talk about climate change at least occasionally, according to estimates from the Yale Program on Climate Change Communication. I'm trying to nudge that number just a bit with this series of conversations about the climate emergency. Conversations that start with listening to CNN readers. Several of you asked through CNN's online forum about how best to engage with climate skeptics in your lives, about how to have these difficult conversations, and about how to be persuasive when you do end up chatting with someone who doesn't accept the fact that humans are warming the planet dangerously, primarily by bumping fossil fuels. I recently put a few of your questions to Karen Kirk, a geologist and writer for Yale Climate Connections, an initiative of the Yale Center for Environmental Communication. Kirk lives in Montana, and she's had almost 500 conversations, as she wrote in Scientific American, with voters about environmental issues. In those conversations, she aimed to persuade voters that climate change is real and worth voting on. I thought we all might learn from her experiences. The following is an edited transcript of our conversation. John Schutter. I want to start with a question from a reader, Ryan, in Florida, who asks, how do I convince my normally otherwise rational friend that climate change is real and worth paying attention to. How would you respond? Kirk, the first question to ask yourself is easy because it's just self-reflective. It doesn't involve your friend, and that is, why are you needing to have a conversation? Like, what's your personal angle? Are you feeling like you need to be right or they need to be wrong? Are you feeling like they need to join you in particular action? Do you need to convince them of something? Understanding your own motives up front can be a little yucky, because we all want to be righteous. Yucky 是讨厌的 righteous 正义。But I think getting your own motives straight in your mind is going to make your mission much clearer. Even though I spent my whole life, like since I was an undergraduate, working on the science of climate change, I'm quick to abandon that in conversation because it's often a dead end. You can make a very nimble sidestep. Nimble sidestep 就是敏捷的回避，你可以很灵巧的回避。Nimble sidestep if you know what your overall goal is. For me, I can't even tell Ryan what his motives are. I want clean energy, and I want it in Montana. I want it for our town. I want it for our ski area. I want it for me personally. And I know that clean energy is the biggest solution to climate change. Shooter, of course there is a right and wrong answer in this case because of the science. We are causing climate change, but you are saying just kind of abandon that. Let that go in a conversation with someone who denies it. Kirk, yes, let's say you spend hours talking about ice cores and Earth cycle and all that, and at the end you agree, then what? Then what is let's solve it, right? So just start with that. You are going to waste a lot less energy. Shooter, is persuasion the right goal in this conversation? Kirk, the answer is definitely no. In a really artful conversation, persuasion is a side effect. Once the person trusts you and once you are saying, oh, I'm learning from you, I'm appreciating you, I'm benefiting from this conversation, then you will be masterfully persuasive. If you go in like, okay, I'm going to change your mind and show you graphs and talk about volcanoes, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. One easy way to frame it is to say to a skeptic, okay, all my friends agree with me, so there's nothing that I can learn from them. But you are different, and I appreciate this opportunity to have a more interesting conversation than I have with people who already agree with me. So explain it to me. I'm curious. I'm genuinely open to learn more about your point of view. Shooter. Another question is from Leselle in Ottawa. She says, how do I convince a religious person who does not want to believe that humans could be powerful enough to be destroying the world that God gives them? Kirk, I love that question. I got that exact question on the campaign trail, and it was actually one of the most memorable. The idea is that it's hubristic to think that hubristic 就是暴躁的 it's hubristic to think that humans can change the grand scheme of things. I think the best approach is backing up a couple of steps and presenting it not as climate change but really as this idea of population. It's easy for someone to say, I don't care about polar bear and I don't trust ice cores. and dismiss that, but really, can anyone actually think about their lived experience and think that we are not polluting every part of the planet? Do you look at a river or across a sky or everything, the parking lot? Do you really look at that and see we are doing a perfect job? Everybody knows intuitively that we are polluting the planet. Then you can relate that to various religious frames, depending on what the angle is. It's our charge to take care of this planet. God made a perfect planet, and we are the day-to-day keepers of the planet. Look around, how are we doing? Shooter, are there any key don'ts that you have learned from engaging in these conversations about climate change? Kirk, the key don't is don't spend too much time arguing with people that you are never going to change their mind. Your time is going to be much better spent working with people who are motivated, but not sure where to put that motivation. You could spend years arguing with your uncle-in-law and never get anywhere. Shooter, Todd in Ohio, asked why has this become politicized? Kirk, unfortunately, a lot of it because of the oil companies. I don't like to be too aggressive about placing blame, but that's clear when you look at their track record of how they've spent money on public disinformation campaign. Their specific messages, what they are still doing on social media and in other places. It's very clear that they have invested billions of dollars to put the brakes on climate messaging and climate progress, and they are still doing it. Shooter. This is another one from Lessel in Canada. She asked whether it's possible for us to address the climate crisis without the help of people who won't accept the scientific realities. Is that possible or even desirable? Kirk, all we need is maybe 51%. We need enough to win elections that counts at the local scale all the way up through the president. And so it's certainly easier the more support you have. But no, you don't need every person. Shooter, what is the trend in terms of public opinion on the climate crisis? Kirk, the trend is up, but it is disappointingly slow on the way it's going up. It's very rare anymore that you find anyone who doesn't agree that it's getting warmer. More and more people are agreeing that we should do something, that we should pollute less. Any closing thoughts? This has never mattered more. We are at this pinnacle of our inability to understand each other. The people on the opposite side from you feel the exact same way as you do. They are equally distressed about this. Nobody is having fun right now with our national conversation. Nobody. And so that gives you this immediate, profound common ground. Hey, I'm as miserable as you are. Hey, you know what? The two of us can buck that trend.